Welcome back, everybody. I am putting my final touches on this latest construction project. This is a GN15 building made out of primarily foam. It's 23 inches tall from the base to the very top of the chimney on this model. In the background, as you can see, is my model railroad I call Amalfitano. I apologize. It's been quite a bit of time since my last posting, but my excuse is that I've been working on this building slowly but surely, working on it. It's got a couple of new features on it that took me quite a bit of time to learn and to be able to include in this building. It includes windows that are 3D printed that I learned how to design in Tinkercad. I've been excited to finally purchase a 3D printer and started learning how to use it and also how to design. So this building will include 3D printed parts like those windows that you see. And at the very bottom left-hand corner, you'll see an electrical outlet and other parts. Another video I will include in the future that goes into a little bit more depth about 3D printing and model railroading. One of the last steps that I will be including in this project will be, of course, adding the Woodland Scenics Just Plug light system. These self-stick LEDs will go inside, and this light sequencing hub will be underneath the layout to accompany all the other hubs that are underneath that. And this hub will allow me to turn the lights on and off based on the timing that I would like to see. And it's all adjustable for each and every room that has one of these LEDs plugged into this sequencing light hub. So join me in the construction of this building. Inspired by my recent trip to Italy and a 3D filament printer on its way, I was excited to start a new building for the layout. Early in the construction of my layout, I mocked up all the buildings that I thought I would need for the layout. And this building is no different. They're made out of foam core, and it helps to visualize the upcoming project, how big it needs to be and where windows can be. It's a good planning tool. To that end, I realized that having two windows on each floor was going to be too crowded, so I decided to go with one window. Here I measured it to start the process of cutting foam. Using a foam cutter makes it quite easy to chop down the foam to size. The key thing is to use low temperature and move slowly. Foam is really a good material for GN15 because it's easy to cut. It comes in large pieces. And with GN15, you really need big pieces. Here I'm cutting out all the windows and the door openings. One of the key things of cutting clean, accurate cuts with a knife is to make sure that the blade is nice and sharp. Don't skimp here. It creates more problems if you had dull knives. This building was envisioned to be a kind of annex to a factory that's next door on the left. So I made an extra large window opening. Here I'm testing out the size and trying to make measurements to see how much of the mock-up needs to be cut down so that it'll be the same size as envisioned in the mock-up. After gluing the foam core to the mock-up, I discovered after test fitting it that it was a little too big width-wise to go back into the original place on the layout. So here I am cutting it down. Using insulation foam for these projects is quick and easy, and you can get a basic building on the table fairly quickly. First up as a modeling project was the doorway, which was going to be a wooden door. So here I am cutting out a piece of foam core in the basic shape of the opening to receive the wood that will be glued to this shape. To model a wooden door, I decided to use, of course, wood. And here I am cutting the strip wood that you can buy at a hobby shop into the same perfect square shape. And then I drew the lines for the strip wood for my scale with boards. And I started slicing them into narrow strips. To accentuate the wood, I used a X-Acto coarse saw to add texture to the wood strips by running the saw along the length of the strip wood. Unlike my previous building projects, which required me to carve a zillion bricks, this one was just a simple paint job. Here I'm painting it with a nice warm tone along the entire foam. Ended up putting in 2 coats and also went over it with some white paint to show some sun bleached areas. After the paint dried, I noticed that some of my knife marks were still showing that were going to distract from the overall look of the building, so I went in there with Durham's water putty and filled some of the cut marks that I could find. Some things that you notice when you're touring fishing villages in Italy is that you see a lot of cracked facades and the stone underneath exposed. So I decided to carve it and model it, and here I am starting to paint some gray stones. Next up was gluing the big wooden doors. I'm showing you here the wooden tabs that I glued in place to offset the doors and the windows. And here I am applying glue. I'm using wood glue, but you could use regular PVA glue like white glue. One of the most satisfying things for me is actually putting in something together that actually fits perfectly. Here is the wooden doors going in place and being recessed exactly the way I wanted it. One of the more creative outlets in model railroading today is 3D printing. Now, instead of lamenting that nobody makes the part that you need, all you have to do is imagine it, design it in Tinkercad or some comparable software, then print it out. And here I am gluing a part that I designed on Tinkercad is a service panel that I saw in many of the buildings in Italy. Something that used to take me days to make were windows. Here are some early window designs that I made in Tinkercad and printed out. And now I'm fitting them into the building the very same day. That's exciting. The little pieces of wood that I hot glued to the sides of the window openings made it a lot easier to install the window prints in very accurately. I used an X-Acto blade to carve cracks in the facade to heighten the weathered, dilapidated look of these buildings that I saw in my tour of some of these fishing villages in Italy. One thing that I saw in many of the buildings were these window grates that allowed cool air to come in and out. And I decided to model it using a 3D printer. And I added a window behind it. So here I am installing both the window grate and the window that is behind it. Ever present in my model railroad is cobblestones. This time I decided to remove the original paper layer of the foam core mock-up for the floor to expose the foam, and used a ballpoint pen to start drawing in the cobblestones. Although a little bit tedious, it's quick work. I also found street grates on a website called Thingiverse, which I printed on my 3D printer. Missing from my previous model builds is the electric wiring that you find prevalent in many of these fishing village buildings hanging from the outside. And I modeled it using some wire and some brass rod. The brass rod was used as the hangers for the wire. Probably one of the more challenging things for me was coming up with a business name. I came up with Bertoldi after researching on the internet for inspiration. By naming the building and coming up with the business behind it opens up a lot of creative opportunities for detailing. Some quick projects included making gutters and downspouts and the creation of a chimney out of foam. It was a quick project. I cut it to shape and used a ballpoint pen to make the lines, and then I painted it. Other details included the electrical wiring, the little outlet box, a tattered sign, and the chimney pots, which are really just thumbtacks. The next step is to add these LED stick-on lights from Woodland Scenics. It's a very simple process. You peel the backing tape, stick them on the wall, run the wires down to the bottom of the building and through a hole in the baseboard and connect it to the light hub or the sequencing hub. The sequencing hub, of course, is the hub that allows you to vary the amount of time your lights are on and off. So it's a simple matter of taking the top off, untwisting off the little twist tie, and you have this plug that plugs into the hub, and this other end is the LED light already wired, and the backing is right here. So my buildings are made of foam core, and so let's put in, say, the first floor. So you peel it off, you stick it on where you believe it will be out of sight, press it down a little, run the wire through a pre-made hole, and you plug this into a hub. It's simple. No soldering, no complicated wiring to figure out. Simple matter of taping it in. So this is the brains of the operation. This is the sequencing light hub from Woodland Scenics. It comes in this nice little package with instructions in the back. It's really that simple. Comes with screws and the sequencing hub. You've got these white squares so that you can label them, and then you've got these individual pots that can be used to control dimmer controls, and everything plugged into this control system, this hub, can be controlled by this speed dial. So you can just adjust it, play with it until you got what you want. But these are dimmer switches. Now I installed this upside down under my layout because it's easier to plug in the lights into these sockets from below. That's the only thing I do different than maybe that was specified. But other than that, I will put the screws right through here, screw them in, plug them in, attach, go from the hub to the Woodland Scenic sequencing hub, the expansion hub. So I'll go from, take a wire from the expansion hub, plug it into here, then attach all the lights that I want here, up to 4. And then with this adjuster here, I will adjust the sequence of how fast or how slow the lights come on, come off. And these will be adjusted for how bright I want them. So you may want to consider, for example, residential rooms such as living rooms, kitchens, all that kind of thing in the 1930s as dimmer, not as bright as the light bulbs of today. And if you're trying to simulate old light bulbs, you want to get a warm light bulb. Here is the project building put in place on the layout, and the lights attached to the Woodland Scenics light system, which is installed underneath, with the LEDs attached to the various rooms of this building. So I have attached the lights to the first floor / ground floor, depending if you're American or you're European. The ground floor light is attached to a regular light hub, which only turns on and off when power is supplied, but it remains constantly on when you turn on the power switch. That you have the ability to adjust the brightness of the lights. So if it is a factory, I would presume the lights are pretty bright. If it's a residential area, like above this model, the lights may be a little dimmer because you would presume that in the 1930s, when this layout is set, the electricity is expensive in Italy, and second, they are using old tungsten lights, not the compact fluorescent lights or LED lights that we have on today. So you would tone down the brightness of the lights. So you could do that on the light sequencing hub or the regular light hub. So on the floors above the factory area, I have installed the lights to the light sequencing hub so that they can turn on and off, while the ground floor will remain constantly on during the time that the power is on. I have a master switch that turns everything on and off, but it is very nice to see the lights turn on and off. The speed that I have it set right now is faster than I normally set my lights. I will slow it down after this video so that it's a little bit more normal to show people living there, but not, a possessed child turning it on and off. But really, it'll be slower, but it's still subtle enough for people to think, oh, somebody's living there. Well, with that, I will conclude this video and thank everybody for their continued dedication and support of this channel. Please like and subscribe. Really appreciate anybody's comments, ideas, suggestions, maybe some ideas of what's my next project. I'm pretty excited about the opportunity to do this 3D printing that I have gotten involved in. This is great. I'm going to provide you with a minute's worth of video showing the railroad alive with sound. Thank you for visiting the little fishing village of Amalfitana. Please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Until next time, arrivederci.